Bodybuilding has always been a game of extremes. Extreme diets, extreme training, extreme physiques, and of course, extreme drug use. In a sport where doing
whatever it takes
to win is the norm, one man took that step too far. Andreas Münzer was the embodiment of an anatomy chart that had come to life. Veins like wiring, skin like paper, and every muscle fiber carved so deep it barely looked human. But unlike he claims, that look didn't just come from hard training, good genetics, and chicken breast. Starvation-level diets, dehydration, and a dangerous cocktail of steroids and diuretics were powerful enough to strip almost every trace of fat off his body. While everyone else cycled in and out of shape, Münzer tried to live on stage year-round. And being peeled wasn't just his edge, it became his entire identity. Despite all that, during his decade-long career and 20 competitions, he never won a pro contest. He gambled, but it didn't pay off. And when it came time to pay the price of years of constant drug abuse, he was left bleeding to death on an operating table with tennis ball-sized tumors in his liver, a heart almost twice the normal size, and traces of around 20 different drugs in his system. From a shy Austrian village kid seeking to be the next Arnold, to the most shredded man who ever stepped on stage, to an untimely death at the age of 31. This is the tragic tale of Andreas Münzer. Born on October 25, 1964, Andreas Münzer, or Andy as many would call him, grew up in Pack, Austria, less than 30 minutes from the birthplace of Arnold Schwarzenegger. His family were farmers who ran a dairy business that just about kept them afloat. They often described him as a shy boy, but also a hard worker who was always on hand to help with the family business. Andy played the trumpet in a local band and was fascinated by sports. Soccer in the summer, and skiing during the winter. He was a fast skier who would even build jumps to constantly push himself.
Sport, das war einfach sein Leben. Als kleiner Bub hat schon Sport gemacht und sie nicht auf Bodybuilding hin, aber Fußball, wie halt die kleinen Buben sind.
But his turn to bodybuilding came as a teen when he started a tool-making apprenticeship in a town 5 miles from home.
Und dann irgendwann in der Lehrzeit hat er immer müssen auf dem Bus warten, ein paar Stunden. Und er ist nicht wie andere auf ein Bier gegangen, sondern er ist ins Fitnessstudio gegangen.
As an Austrian kid who's into bodybuilding, you only have one instant role model to look up to.
Arnold Schwarzenegger ist für mich schon ein Riesenvorbild. Und stellen Sie sich vor, von einem Jungen mit einer Trainingstasche nach Amerika zu gehen, um da ein Superstar zu werden und gar nicht die Voraussetzungen zu haben. Diesen Ehrgeiz, diesen Trieb zu haben, immer ständig hungrig zu sein und richtig arbeiten und alles richtig mit Volldampf zu machen. Das ist fantastisch.
Both Austrians and both from the state of Styria, Andy started drawing parallels to Arnold and saw him as a template for greatness. He put on mass quickly and his family remembered. The results came automatically, and by the age of 19, his training partners pushed him into his first contest, the Styrian Championships, where he competed in the junior class up to 176 pounds and took second. But what started as fun soon turned into commitment.
In jungen Jahren schon hat er schon Erfolg gehabt. Er hat laufend Erfolg gehabt, er war immer voran schon und das hat ihm halt immer Auftrieb gegeben. Und da war halt eine große Begeisterung, dass er eigentlich nicht aufhören kann.
Das Gefühl beim Training ist wie wenn man Sex mit einer Frau. Und stellen Sie sich vor, ich trainiere 6-mal die Woche und 2-mal am Tag. Wenn ich mich im Spiegel betrachte, da denke ich, wow, da hast du was geschaffen. Das hat nicht an jeder. Hat vielleicht nichts mit Schönheit zu tun, aber das ist ein Körper, den hat nicht jeder. Es ist wie ein Ferrari, den hat auch nicht jeder.
Motivated by his first local result, he started winning Austrian titles, first junior, then senior, as his identity locked onto bodybuilding. In 1986, the 21-year-old left his employment and co-opened a gym with his friend so he could dedicate himself to training full-time. Throughout the next 2 years, he landed third at the 1987 IFBB World Amateur Championships in Madrid as a light heavyweight, and in 1988, it was bronze again. But now he landed in Albert Busek's field of view, and his trajectory was about to accelerate from here. Busek was the European bodybuilding kingmaker and one of Arnold's early promoters and mentors. He spotted Andy at the World Amateurs, put him on the cover of Flex magazine, and called him a potential world champion. And to Andy, the cover was worth more than winning the championships. At the age of 24, his first and last major win came at the 1989 IFBB World Games, earning him his pro card and catapulting him to stand next to the best of the best. Shortly after his amateur breakthrough, he had to give up his own gym because it needed costly renovations. But he wasn't devastated over it because a brighter future was on the horizon. Busek had invited him to Munich to work as a studio manager and trainer at his training center. Munich was the capital of German bodybuilding and a real springboard for international fame, especially compared to local recognition back home. At the time, Busek was the most influential European bodybuilding official, holding major roles in the German Bodybuilding and Fitness Federation, DBFV, and practically, without him, nothing runs in Europe. Busek constantly promoted Andy as a clean athlete and ambassador. But insiders understood the reality was more complicated. According to author John Houghton's book Muscle, during his days at Busek's training center, a young lifter hit a plateau, asked Münzer for help, who pulled him aside somewhere quiet and put him on a steroid cycle. The lifter later realized 2 rules in that world. Everyone is using, and nobody talks about it openly. Busek's team took it as far as pushing a TV portrait where Münzer implied his physique comes from a strict diet alone.
Ich nutze alles, was ich nehmen darf. Auch Anabolika? Anabolika ist nicht erlaubt.
Auf einem Rastplatz in der Nähe von München ist ein Medikamentendealer ganz anderer Meinung. Er hat Münzer eine Zeit lang mit Arzneimitteln versorgt. Im großen Stil, rezeptfrei und für viel Geld.
Also er hat mit Arzneimitteln gearbeitet, was erhältlich war. Er hat sicherlich auch sehr, sehr viele Mittel einfach mal getestet und mal geschaut, was dabei rauskommt. Ob das für ihn gut ist oder für ihn weniger gut ist. Er hat mit Wachstumshormonen gearbeitet, dann auch mit den sogenannten 17-Alpha-Gruppe. Das sind toxische Mittel, also die sind rein über die Leber abgebaut werden. Das sind also mitunter sehr gefährliche.
Münzers Medikamentenliste für das chemische Trainingspensum. Ganz wichtig, Parabolan, ein Mastmittel für die Schlachtviehproduktion.
Dieses Mittel ist einfach gefährlich beim Einsatz im Menschen, vor allen Dingen auch in den Konzentrationen, also in überhöhten Konzentrationen.
From this moment on, his identity split. At home in Styria, he's a modest son, helping on the farm, playing with nephews, cooking his own food if the family meal doesn't fit his plan, and projecting the illusion of being clean. This facade worked so well that his own father was convinced his son never took anything. Later, he regrettably said in an interview, "I should have known." In Munich, however, Andy is a big man without a past, rarely discussing his origins. Houghton encapsulated this stage of his life perfectly. Andy had made the deal. He had no choice. In chess, there is a position called Zugzwang, a German term that means a compulsion to move, where you must make a move, even though that move will cause you to lose. Drugs were bodybuilding's Zugzwang. By the early 1990s, the judging North Star was shifting toward the era of the freak. Bigger bodies, denser muscle, and a more intimidating mass monster look. His 13th place finish in his first Mr. Olympia in 1989 made it clear if he wants to be in the top 6, he'll have to play the Zugzwang sooner rather than later. Andy was more than an athlete. He was a working pro in a system, coaching, seminars, guest posing, magazine presence, and constant visibility. He was Busek's poster boy, writing routines and diet guidance for readers, and keeping a heavy schedule of public appearances. Only when his muscles were bulging and gleaming under the spotlights could he demand the 2,500 marks fee for the 40 yearly appearances he made. And to stay in near-state form year-round to earn money, he had to spend between 10 and 15,000 marks a month on drugs. A vicious cycle that kept him stuck for years.
Also vom finanziellen Bereich her kann man im Monat mit 300, ganz genauso aber mit 3000 Mark verwenden. Genauso ist eigentlich auch bei den Dosierungen. Es gibt Leute, die verwenden bis zu 1-2 Gramm pro Woche. Es gibt andere Leute, die verwenden die gleiche Dosis im Monat.
Zum Schluss soll Münzer 15.000 Mark im Monat fürs Doping gebraucht haben.
Obviously, this, alleged cycle is assuming this guy's very well connected with some of these dosages and very wealthy with some of these dosages, which honestly, seeing Andreas Münzer's placings and everything, I don't think he would have even had the financial means to support these cycles.
Speculations of cycles and dosages have circulated the internet for years, with nothing really confirmed, but according to some sources, he started hitting some heavy cycles, injecting 2 ampules of testosterone a day, taking orals like Halo and Anabol, combining them with Masteron and Parabolin, and using between 4 and 24 units of the growth hormone STH. He also used insulin to stimulate his metabolism and burn calories more quickly, and at least 5 aspirin tablets each morning to thin his blood and help with the pain of training, with some Valium in the mix. Most dangerously, however, was his use of diuretics near contest time to pull water off the body.
He's bouncing from contest to contest. He's under that stress, and he's just cranking orals, cranking hydrophilic water-based Winstrol. He's known to love that, and that makes you rip to shreds. But he had peptic ulcer disease. Maybe he was very stressed. Maybe he took a lot of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs.
Around the same time, bodybuilding was getting caught up in the growing anxiety over steroid use in mainstream sports. And with the Weider's efforts to include bodybuilding in the Olympics, came the decision to follow the International Olympic Committee guidelines and emphasize an IOC-approved testing program to curb steroid use in 1990, making it one of the most controversial years in bodybuilding history. The Arnold Classic, held in March 1990, instituted drug testing, and it was a disaster. Andy finished in 4th place behind Mike Christian, Mike Ashley, and the eventual winner, Sean Ray.
Wayne Amelia called me and said, your test result came back positive, but you won't be getting your $60,000 and you will have to return the trophy.
Sean, alongside 3 other bodybuilders, were disqualified after testing positive. And to the surprise of everyone, none of these names included Münzer. Multiple insiders have described a core problem. Testing always lagged behind what athletes were using, and the sport was already deep into chemical escalation, in addition to the lab's inability to keep up, which made the drug testing process lackluster to say the least. 1990 became an early career boost on paper. Andy was elevated 1 placing after Sean was stripped of the title, ending up 3rd at the second most prestigious show in bodybuilding, with Mike Ashley, who claimed to be a lifetime natural, announced as the new winner. He carried that momentum to the 1990 Mr. Olympia. This time, the Olympia testing plan was designed specifically to avoid the Arnold Classic scenario. Samples were taken on Wednesday, with results coming out on Friday, so that everyone who competed on Saturday would have passed. 5 competitors failed the test right before the show, and once again, Andreas Münzer's name wasn't on the list.
All this steroid testing is no problem for me. My interest is diet and training and no drugs.
How this guy, Andreas Münzer, passed that drug test, that's something I can't explain. Maybe somebody advised him properly and he did get off the drugs, because this guy, boy, was he a walking drugstore, that guy.
He took 9th place in his second Olympia, an improvement from last year, and finishing 3rd in the 1990 German Grand Prix behind Nimrod King and Momo Benaziza, who'd been sweeping title after title, winning 6 out of 7 contests that year, even beating Dorian Yates in that year's Night of Champions. Momo was another casualty of the Freak era that plagued the 90s, and despite his death from heart failure about 7 hours after the 1992 Dutch Grand Prix at the age of 33, Andy didn't learn from that mistake and kept pushing his body to new extremes. By 1995, he had only 2 podium finishes to his name out of 18 contests. He was never satisfied with his physique and was always looking for ways to look more freaky.
Viele sagen, ich habe schon einen perfekten Körper, aber man kann den Körper immer noch verbessern, weil ich genetisch her nicht die besten Anlagen habe. Man kann immer noch breitere Schultern haben, eine schmälere Taille, die Muskeln noch mehr austrainieren, den Bizeps noch höher machen und so Details ausfeilen.
Andy was elite, but not genetically built for the very top archetype of the 90s. He couldn't match Yates or Dillette for sheer size. He didn't have Lavroni's charisma. He couldn't beat Ray's symmetry or Flex Wheeler's lines, and the judges repeatedly criticized his somewhat wooden stage presentation. So even if he was winning the body battle, he was still losing points in the performance category. This set up the central tension. What could he maximize that the giants can't easily copy? His dryness was his unique selling proposition, and he doubled down on that. Extreme drug use was only one part of the equation. His training and diet were just about as extreme as his stack.
Diät im Hause Münzer. Nudeln, ungewürzte Pute und frisches Gemüse. Ein hartes Leben.
Also in der Vorbereitung ist es schon so, dass ich wie ein menschlicher Computer vorgehe. Ich esse wirklich per Stunde genau, Programm abgewogen, alles.
And I remember saying, Andreas, do you ever eat junk food or anything? And he says, oh yeah, he says, I go off my diet in between shows. He mentioned a type of cheese. I said, that's it? That's your off diet stuff? You don't eat ice cream or pizza? And he looked at me like I was crazy. He says, no. He says, never.
He reportedly trained 6 days a week, 6 to 8 hours a day with high intensity, ate 8,000 calories a day during the off-season, and during contest prep, he'd cut water aggressively, claiming he sometimes drank only about a half a liter per day, in addition to using diuretics. This left him so dry on stage that his lips would constantly stick together, as measurements supposedly found only about an 8mm skin layer over the muscle.
To really appreciate his muscle definition, you had to see him in person. Münzer was so muscular that just sitting there, I could see cuts all over his arms. I mean, he wasn't even flexing. I said, did you ever have your body fat measured? He said, yes. He told me it was 6%.
6%, he's way more shredded than most guys who claim they're 5% or 3%, yeah.
And by late 1995, it was all about to catch up with him. John Houghton wrote, the stomach pains had begun some months before Andy went to Columbus, Ohio for the 1996 Arnold Classic. At first, it was just more pain, and pain was the currency of muscle. Andy paid it little heed. It dug in and nestled down with all the other pain, the agonies of training, the banal deprivations of dieting down. But it kept coming back, and its payload was different. A connoisseur of pain like Andy would soon have been able to tell. He would have been able to recognize it and rank it as something special in the pain game, something more exotic than the stuff he usually bore. He began to mention it to friends at the gym. He tried some health cures that would strengthen his stomach lining. Perhaps if Andy had quit training then, if he'd turned away from withering deprivations of another round of competition and stopped juicing, he might have survived. Instead, the boy from Pack made himself ready to compete in front of the boy from Tall, his hero. Andy got a granite hard and shrink-wrapped. There might have been bigger men on stage in Ohio, but there would be no one who was shredded quite like him. He was a walking, talking anatomical textbook. He was curious and weirdly beautiful, an abstract set apart.
Competitor number 13, Andreas Münzer.
After his 6th place at the Arnold Classic on the 2nd of March, Andy's mood remained low. Man, why don't you laugh? One of the German officials had said to him. You're the best white guy behind 5 black guys. Andy was never going to laugh at that. Best white guy, best German speaker, all of the pain and deprivation, all of the gym seminars and pain-filled nights for those worthless epithets.
Ich habe mir schon gedacht, dass ich vielleicht den 3. mache, aber ich habe das schon so oft miterlebt und das ist eben so im Bodybuilding, wo Schiedsrichter richten.
Andys Nachteil, ist kein Amerikaner.
His placing might not have been that impressive, but his effort surely was. Peter McGuff noted that Andy was doing full contest prep while in acute pain, saying it's remarkable he could show up full and super ripped while dealing with acute pain through prep. Shortly after the Arnold, he flew to Los Angeles for a photo shoot before entering the San Jose Pro Invitational, a popular stop-off after the Arnold. Kevin Levrone cleaned up again for his second win in a week, while Andy struggled to 7th. While this was a minor show, suddenly Andy's best white guy, best German speaker tag was more tenuous. He was 31, and he was never going to be another Arnold after all. Mostly because this would be his last ever contest. On Tuesday, March 12th, he was back in Munich. He briefly stopped at Busick's gym. His friends noticed he was quite pale, but they attributed it to the stress of flying. He called his parents in Austria, but only reached his 6-year-old nephew, Marcus, and arranged a visit over Easter. It was his last phone call home. The following morning, the stomach pain came back, this time more intense and more serious. His bill had come in, and he was fairly sure that this time he couldn't meet it. The debt was too big. His abdomen was swelling, hard and distended. The situation turned urgent, and his fiancée called a doctor in. Turns out, what had been a stomach pain for months now revealed itself as a full-body emergency. Inside the bulging horror that begun under his ribcage, artificial testosterone had docked onto the receptors of the muscles. Once there, it instructed the production of proteins which thickened the muscle walls. The blood vessels, already strained, could no longer withstand his blood pressure, and they ruptured. He was bleeding to death. The doctor couldn't do much for him, and he was transferred to the hospital, where doctors decided to operate on him to stop the bleeding. Andy came through, and just when it seemed like an immediate crisis was averted, his body was already spiraling.
They wanted to transfuse blood right away. Right away, that's what we do. He denied it.
His potassium levels were excessively high, and the dehydration from the diuretics he used in the days before his last competitions made the situation worse. His condition was too severe for a blood transfusion by this point. Eventually, his kidneys failed. His liver was melting, and it was later found to have almost dissolved completely. And although his heart held out for a while, it eventually gave out at the young age of 31.
The autopsy gave the cause of death as dystrophic multiple organ failure. So specific autopsy findings were an almost complete absence of subcutaneous fat. Apparently his liver contained numerous tennis ball-sized tumors, with half the liver consisting simply of a crumbly mass. This is supposedly his liver, weighed in at 2.9 kilograms, almost a kilo heavier than a normal male's liver, weighing in at 2 kilograms.
His heart was enlarged, no question. 631 grams, normal heart, 300, 350, kind of double-sized heart. Testicles are also stated to be atrophied significantly to the point where they're the size of hazelnuts.
In the end, Andreas Münzer made a choice. He deliberately tested the ceiling of his own potential, pushing toward his limits, understanding the risk, and choosing to keep going anyway. He wanted to transcend what was humanly possible, and it worked, if only for a moment. His story is more than just a drug list. It is also one of discipline, sacrifice, and years spent earning millimeters of perfection. Like many before him, and even more after him, he flew too close to the sun. And the cruel truth is the curve didn't flatten after him. It rose. Bigger, harder, and more extreme. The finish line kept moving, and the incentives kept punishing anyone who couldn't afford to slow down.